Open up with a prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings. All sisters pray with their heads covered. And we face the east towards Jerusalem. Abba Father, Yahweh, Elohim, the Allah of Abraham, Yashak, and Yaakov. Covenant Father, Elohim of Yahshua, we thank you once again for allowing us to come together on your Shabbat, to keep your commandments, Yahweh. We ask that you accept our sign, Yahweh, for we understand that the Sabbath is a sign unto you, that we are your children and you are our Elohim. Yahweh, we thank you for all your protection and your guidance throughout the week, Yahweh. We ask that you open our eyes, Yahweh, wider, allow us to receive more light so that we can keep our eyes on that narrow path. Yahweh, we also ask that you please forgive us of our sins and trespasses, Yahweh, and not to just forgive us, Yahweh, but we accept the chastening, Yahweh, and we ask that you also allow us to see the error in our ways, Yahweh, so we can deliberately make the changes necessary, Yahweh, to give you the glory you deserve, Yahweh, through your servants, Yahweh. Yeah, all these things we humbly come before you, and you ask that you also allow your angel that sits at the door and knock to come in and sup with us and us with him, so your name could be here on these grounds, giving us that Kodesh Mikra that we so desperately desire to keep for you, Yahweh. Yeah, all these things we humbly come before you, and we thank and pray for your through your holy, humble anointed Son, Yahshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Right during that prayer just now, even the idea came into my head, like being that, you have a profession now, set your own schedule and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You could even go visit Poly's congregation and hand in y'all Talmud and like chill with them out in Cali for chill them in Cali.
Yeah, we're going to Cali.
For real? When?
That's the next trip, either Cali or Vegas.
Check them out, get some recording.
Philly, I definitely got to get to Philly too.
Who's up there?
Yishak.
Oh yeah. Who does he congregate with though? He used to do his own thing.
Yeah.
I think Kesset is in Cali as well.
A lot of the brothers in Cali.
And just like showcase all they were doing in a good light. You know what I mean? So there's a feeling of unity among us.
Yeah.
And if they
shofar, when you hear the shofar,
yeah. So that if there's a feeling of oneness in our community. Oh, look at that Frodo! Whoa! Chanel, look.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, she
That's
killing
her style.
them.
She be killing them, bro. They be copying her.
Big stage 2. That's stage 3. But yeah, the conscious community is trying.
Yeah, we just have to build, and the radio show is going to be good for that as well.
Yeah. Think I leave it down on your knee. Man now watching a show, man now look on the camera, and then I'm in inbox. What's your name, man? What's your name, man? No, the one we meet that we took to Sis Beamer's congregation in Jamaica.
Oh.
What do you want name once I talk to you? Tayaman.
It's not anymore.
I'm not watching no show. I'm not look power camera. But I'm doing my inbox. I ask. All right.
All right, Shabbat Shalom. My name is Yadon Yasharal, my brother Jonathan Yasharal.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And the title of today's Shabbat study is The Higher Calling. The Higher Calling. And, we all want to be, the chosen people and, the 12 tribes of Israel and, the sons of the Most High and tribe of Judah. We want to do everything and we want all the titles and the pomp and circumstance, but we have to accept the higher calling that comes with that, with being a sanctified people. And unfortunately, this process is going to come with a lot of tribulation and anguish. When you are in assembly, you carry each other's burdens and you hear the burdens that we all deal with, and you see, we all have in our own individual lives our own burdens, things that we brought on ourselves and things that are generational that we have to deal with. And we see the common theme that we're all dealing with stuff. We're all under tribulation. But then you see some servants, they look like they're just as happy as ever. Everything is just great. But when you talk to these servants, you see they're going through the same things, if not more things than many people are going through. But they understand the higher calling. They understand that you have to suffer for righteousness' sake. And through much tribulation and struggle must we go through to enter into the kingdom. So we have to prepare ourselves for the higher calling so that we don't sacrifice our righteousness and our works because we're going through tribulation, and learn to struggle through those things. Just like even in a muscle, you will not get any growth until that muscle goes through that tribulation, until it breaks itself down. And in that failure and causing the muscle to fail is where the growth begins. So we have to learn to accept the tribulation and the anguish that's in our lives, understand some of it is chastening and some of it is just suffering for righteousness' sake, trying to get us treasures in heaven. So we're going to first open up in Matthew chapter 5, and you're going to see, the Mashiach speak about this higher calling that we're called to. It's enough to just do, just keep commandments and think that things are going to be all right. But there's a higher calling. You have to go above and beyond. And that's what Yahshua came, is to take us to the next stage, to say, okay, we're going to go beyond just this list of commandments that we got to keep. We're going to truly understand what these commandments are, implement them for righteousness, and then take it to a higher level. Accept the higher calling. Suffer for righteousness' sake. So we're going to open up in Matthew chapter 5, and we're going to start that at verse 1. And Shabbat Shalom, Sister Kim Marie. Shabbat Shalom, Brian Jones. Good to see you, family, out there in Augusta. Shabbat Shalom, Ariel Smith. Good to see you, sister. And Shabbat Shalom, Yafi Yehuda. Good to see y'all, family. Matthew chapter 5, and let's start this at verse 1.
And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
And verse 7, that's a very important concept, because while we walk in this walk, we have used these commandments to try to guide ourselves to stop committing transgressions against the Most High via other individuals. But everybody hasn't, reached the level of understanding that we had to work for. And you're going to come across brothers and sisters in the word and brothers in the world that are going to transgress against you. And just because we now have the understanding and we know that, okay, this is wrong and we're not going to do that, and we've taken that calling, doesn't mean everybody has opened their eyes to that level. So we have to deliver mercy unto brothers and sisters when they come against us. That doesn't mean you just allow somebody to railroad you, but you let a person know their error, and then you have some mercy on them. You don't have to produce judgment on them or cut them off like we used to do when we were in the world, because at the end of the day, the individual that needs the most mercy is you. You need mercy from the Father because you want him to forgive us for all the things that we've done in our past and the mistakes that we make while we are in the Word and the mistakes we're making that we don't even know. So there's mistakes that we're making because we just haven't learned that lesson yet. We haven't gained that understanding yet. So why would the Most High forgive us for those things just because we mastered a different subset of things, and yet we are not forgiving our brothers and sisters who lack that understanding? The type of mercy you give is the type of mercy that you're telling the Father you want to receive. So we have to definitely keep that in context and in memory when we are dealing with brothers and sisters that are in their error.
I got a question. As far as,
Go ahead, brother.
how do you interpret verse 4?
Okay. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Well, let's look at the Greek. Let's break it down and see what the words are. What's the Strong's for mourn?
G3996.
Okay, so that's to grieve, feeling or an act, to mourn. Okay, so to grieve, they shall be comforted. Now, to grieve doesn't necessarily mean you're grieving because somebody died or so forth and so on. But when you have a contrite spirit, when you're grieving because you have done something that is not giving glory unto the Most High, when you are, in a humbled state, you're in tribulation because maybe actions that you did or righteousness that you did, and you're suffering for righteousness' sake. Those individuals that are grieving, they are humbled and they're in a position where the Most High can talk to them. When you're happy and everything is going great and you running around, you may not have an ear to the Most High. But when you are in a lowered, humbled state, you tend to hear the message of the Most High, and the Most High hears your prayer when you're offering a humble and contrite spirit as a sacrifice of Elohim. You want to add to that, Jonathan?
Yeah, there was a reference at that scripture that referred to Psalm 126. And it said, when Yahweh turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. Then was our mouth filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then said they among the heathen, Yahweh has done great things for them. Yahweh has done great things for us wherever we are glad. Turn again our captivity, O Yahweh, as the streams in the south. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. When he that goes forth and weeps, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. So it definitely seems that though we be afflicted now, Yahweh hasn't afflicted us for no reason. He intends on turning our weeping into joy, and although it may seem like we were unfairly persecuted, it's for the sake of us reaping a great reward at the end of it and understanding how great that reward is.
Right. And it also talks about certain places in the Word where we mourn for Jerusalem for the way that that our people were transgressing the law and allowed the strangers to come in, and we had brothers that wept and mourned for that. Also, when we entered into the second temple, you had the individuals that were there when the first temple got destroyed, and they just wept. They just weep to see, like, wow, look, we're finally back in, and that was the, bringing us back into the second temple. So Yah's we'll have that same feeling of going back into the land, this time for permanent.
Also, Aki, it reminded me of when they asked why that guy was crippled. What sin did his parents do that he had to be born crippled? He was like, it's not a sin that his parents did. It's more so for the sake of Yahshua manifesting his works among them and those miracles among them, why he was the way he was then. So sometimes we are in the situation that we are now, not for anything we necessarily done, but so that is in a position that others can see what Yah can do.
Exactly.
So whether it be someone that's poor, whether it's someone that's handicapped, whether it's someone that may have mental issues, although yes, there could be a manifestation of wickedness or a manifestation of sin in the world, sometimes it's there so that Yah can use that situation for better in the end.
Right. Just like Job, You know, just like the brothers that go through tribulation, you know, the leaders, which we're going to read through this class, the leaders went through all types of tribulation, and it was for the growth of the assembly. It's for the perfecting of the saints.
Hallelujah. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 8. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see Elohim. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of Elohim. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my name's sake.
And blessed are the peacemakers. You know, I remember you had your class, you know, warriors of peace. You know, this is how you bring peace into your life, is when you are a peacemaker, when you go about and you make it your job to have peace with individuals and cause to individuals that are brothers that tend to be going at it, to try to bring peace to the situation by trying to get brothers to walk together and to understand each other's plights. Blessed are those. So that's how we can bring blessings in our lives as well. And Shabbat Shalom, Sister Tanya and Brother Isaiah. Good to see you down there in Augusta. And Shabbat Shalom, Yehuda Israel. Good to see you as well, brother.
Aki, there was something that you brought up in the Bible study last week that I feel was so such an integral part of that manifestation of peace, where it was Galatians chapter 6 verse 1. It says, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, you which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness. So yes, that's your job, you know, bring people back. People sin, people fall, do your best to bring them back. But it gives a caution. It says, considering yourself lest you also be tempted.
Right.
So sometimes when you're trying to manifest peace in a situation, the people that you're trying to manifest peace to aren't always cooperative. And when that happens, sometimes we might feel personally offended, like, oh, this person hate me because I'm trying to tell them the right thing. And we get caught up in the flesh trying to bring someone to what we think is, you know, a better understanding or whatever it may be. But that means that in our off time, we should be preparing our hearts for situations like that, since it's something that we're going to have to do often. You know, our whole house is astray, gone, in a bunch of situations that we feel are unfavorable, where we will be in the midst of uncleanness.
Right.
And we might have a zeal where we feel we might get upset with that person, or we might lash out of a situation, you know, because that person is in carnality. So our minds are already close to how carnal it can be, and it's a very thin line. So we should always minister to ourselves, even in times where we're not trying to restore someone, so that we're even more prepared when the situation comes and our minds aren't in a place where we can easily resort to anger or easily resort to being in the flesh.
I got a question in regards to trying to interface with people like that. How do you relate to them on the level that they may be at? You know, like how do you speak to them in a way that they would understand? You know, because I know, like, in some of my personal experience was just trying to relay like the word from my understanding. There's a disconnect, you know. It's like how do you speak to people in a way that, because they're obviously having, you know, they're on a certain level of understanding. So how do you I guess even that out and speak to them in a way that they might be receptive? Or I mean, is that even possible to even, you know, I guess gauge yourself like that?
Well, you know, Yahshua said, my sheep will hear my voice. So at the end of the day, you know, if are you speaking the words of the Mashiach? You speaking the words of the Most High? His sheep will hear his voice. We can't make somebody hear or see something, and this is where we put too much of our hand in something when we try to control, you know, whether somebody can hear or see something. Now, obviously, you want to give milk before meat. You want to give somebody the best opportunity to receive something, but your increase is not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to deliver the word in a manner that they can understand it, because it's like speaking in tongues. What good is it if there's no interpreter? So you speak in a way that they can understand. You plant that seed, and you don't walk in the situation with the mind frame that I'm gonna plant a seed and a full-grown tree is gonna grow right away. You know, have faith. You know, start with the basics of things, and then also deal with them on the level that they are. You know, if you see that this is what the questions that they're asking and the situation that they're dealing with, don't expect for them to understand something way further down the line when their issue is right here. This is what they're dealing with. And walk away knowing that I planted that seed. Another servant is going to have to come water that seed, or you might have to water that seed, but Yah's going to add the increase. Mm-hmm. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, Aki. That's a big part of what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you mentioned there, and on top of that, the reason people are usually complaining is because there's something that's upsetting them in their heart. And I know me and you had a conversation before about like the basics of where sadness comes from and the basics of why people feel upset about the situation. You know, this week we've had two main big stars, so to speak, kill themselves. At Anthony Bourdain, and then I think some other person, some Spade.
Female.
Yeah, was it some Spade's sister or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, people get disgruntled with the situation that's going on in their life. And Proverbs gives insight into that. It says, hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Right.
So if you're going out to fulfill something in your life and it doesn't go your way, you're going to be upset. You're going to be depressed. And one of the curses that's in the scriptures when, you know, we're not doing the verses, we're not doing the will of Yah. It says, you're gonna plant and somebody else is gonna eat the fruit of your labor. Mm-hmm. So when you plant, it means that your hope is that you're gonna get the fruit and you're gonna eat that fruit. Right. But when what you've planted doesn't come to fruition, you're upset. So the first thing to do to help someone is that when they're complaining to you, their hope is that you're gonna understand. So first you satisfy that hope that, okay, you know what, you've already went through the process in your mind to understand where that person's coming from. So that you don't just come and you're slapping down everything they're saying. Like, you have no reason to be upset. Stop crying. Like, you that's going to ruin your testimony right there. So anything you have to say after that point, they can't relate. So
sympathy.
Exactly. Right. Show sympathy. You want to relate. You want to be able to show that you understand where they're coming from so that they can feel justified in some sense. And then they'll be more willing to hear what it is that you're coming from, because they're going to feel that some level of understanding came from you to where you're like one of the few people that feels their pain. It's like the scripture says, rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. So establish that level of understanding, and then you could definitely move from there. All right. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 12. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, that it gives light unto all that are in the house.
So accept your higher calling. We receive the light. We receive the word. So you don't dumb this down because you around the people. And this is what we tend to do because we want to be so accepted. We, you know, when we get around people, all of a sudden we don't want to cover our heads. We don't want to, you know, speak too spiritual. You know, I would pray before I eat my food. And I kind of didn't want to do that because I didn't want everybody seeing or focus. And I decided to check myself and say, man, why are you dumbing yourself down for people? You know, if you want to pray before you eat your food, then go ahead and pray. Don't dim your light because other people are around. And Shalom, Queens and Andy Koué out of UK. Praise Yah. We got some Hebrews out of the UK. And the lady, Ariel Smith, appreciate that, sis. Said it was Kate Spade.
Kate Spade.
Yeah, it was the other lady.
David Spade's sister.
Yeah, she's pretty famous. That's crazy.
Verse 15. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
And that goes hand in hand with what you were saying earlier. You know, and I was having a conversation with the brother earlier this week about that. We go through certain things so that y'all can get glory in a situation, especially when you're elder in a situation where you have younger people looking up to you. You know, you go through things and people are looking and watching. The youth are watching and seeing, wow, you know, this person appears to be keeping the commandments, but look at all these things happen to them. Then they continue keeping the commandments and they're delivered out of the situation. They're like, praise Yahweh. Yahweh is mighty, mighty. He's wonderful. He's merciful. That means if I go through something and I hang tough, he's going to help me too. And this is why we'll be put in certain situations. And this is all part of accepting this higher calling that we have, because we could just be regular people walking around. But at the end of the day, then we wouldn't have as much ability in our own hands to show the Most High that we want salvation, that we're trying to go after that. And Shabbat Shalom, Brother Robert McCall. Good to see you.
Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill.
So he did not come to destroy the law, which is the Torah, or the prophets, which are any of the prophets that gave the word from the Most High. So I believe a sister was asking, I believe she was asking, what is the laws of the Mashiach? Now, Mashiach is just the Messiah in Hebrew, and his laws are the commandments, because he is the word in flesh. John chapter 1 and verse 1. In the beginning was the word was Elohim, and the word was with Elohim. And that word was made into flesh. That was Yahshua. That was his word. So when he's talking about the laws of the Mashiach, that is just the commandments. And he's confirming here when he came in the flesh, think not that I came to destroy the law. No, I'm not destroying anything. I came to fulfill, which is to make more complete the law, to give a better understanding. Honor your father. Well, what does that mean? How do you do that? You love Yah with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, all your might. Go ahead.
For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven.
Okay, so we know Yahshua is one of the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, because he's on the right hand of the Father in the third heaven. So we know that he would not teach anything against the law, or else he'd be the least in the kingdom of heaven. So anything he's teaching is to keep the law. So never let anybody convince you that Yahshua came down here to say, well, you only got to keep 10 commandments, or you got to keep this. Nah, keep all the laws. All he did was say, I brought you some grace period on this law of sin and death, where there has to be bloodshed when there is a law breaking. I bought you that grace so that you don't bleed to death during this time, so that you could get your act together, so that when you get into the kingdom, you can be judged properly and be able to know how to conduct yourself in the holy kingdom. Go ahead.
Verse 20. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven.
The scribes and Pharisees knew the law way better than we did, because they wrote copies of them. They understood all this. They studied it day in and day out. But they didn't do the commandments. That was the problem. So to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, we got to not only know the commandments. We trying to get to that level, just knowing what it is so that we can make a choice to do it. But we have to know it, then know it and do it. Then know it and do it and teach it to our brothers and sisters, and rebuke our brothers and sisters that are in error, so that they can live their lives blessed and blessed more abundantly. Go ahead.
Verse 21. You have heard that it was said by them of old time, you shall not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire.
All right. And so talking about being angry with your brother, without a cause. Well, you think, you just walk up to somebody and you're just angry with them. Why would anybody do that? Well, if somebody's talking crap about somebody and you just believe that in your heart, that's showing you that you have a hatred for your brother. Because if you don't know what a situation happened and somebody says something negative about somebody, and you just automatically believe that without seeing both sides, without seeking diligently in the matter to see if is this true? Is this the complete story? Then in your heart, you wanted to believe that about somebody. Because if somebody says something about your mom, this, that, you don't want to believe that. You're like, nah, let me see, where the proof? Where this happened? Let me see the tape. Let me hear the audio. You're going to do that. So that shows what's in your heart. When you believe rumors or lies about an individual, it causes you to be angry with somebody without seeking diligently. Now, us as Hebrews, we should never fall into that because we are taught how to judge righteously. Even though we're not to judge one another, we're taught righteous judgment, which is to seek diligently in a manner. But see, we're so used to this culture of things that as soon as they say you did something and they put you on the news, you did it. They put you in a newspaper, it's over before you get a trial. And then when you have certain individuals, if they're on tape shooting somebody or killing somebody, an individual, but because of their job or their position, the general public is like, well, surely this guy must have did something bad before it caused the cop to just run him, shoot him in his back.
Verse 23. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has aught against you, leave there your gift before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Agree with your adversary quickly while you are in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver you to the judge, and the judge deliver you to the officer, and you be cast into prison. Verily I say unto you, you shall by no means come out there till you have paid the uttermost farthing.
And what I take from that precept is, when you're in a situation where, you're with somebody that can use something against you, I don't think that you necessarily have to agree like, yeah, we should just kill people. Yeah, so you don't get in trouble. No, you just don't say nothing. If you know you're in a position where you're going to lose your life or you're not going to be able to go home and take care of your family, you might have to just keep your mouth shut for a minute until you can get yourself out of a situation. Go ahead.
Verse 27. You have heard that it was said by them of old time, you shall not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looks on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart.
And whosoever looketh on a woman, now you can't commit adultery without sleeping with a married woman. So if you look at that word for woman there is gune, it's talking about a wife. When you look at a wife to lust after her, you have committed adultery. And this is what Yahshua is talking about, a higher calling. Now, we know the law for adultery is you have to sleep with that married woman. That's not your wife. But Yahshua is taking it even further. He said, if you are looking at that married woman with lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart already. So he's saying he's trying to get to the root of things and say, listen, I'm not even going to allow you to get to that level. Because what did Dawid do first? He had to lust after that married woman, looking at her taking a bath, and that's what led to him falling. So Yahshua is saying, let's get to the root. I'm dealing with the heart, matters of the heart first. Because if I can deal with this first, then you won't even get to the point of committing that transgression. So let's deal with the heart. My mother always told me growing up, prevention is better than cure. Go ahead.
Verse 29. And if your right eye offend you, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish, and not that your whole body should be cast into hell. And if your right hand offend you, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish, and not that your whole body should be cast into hell. And it has been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced commits adultery.
So you cannot put away your wife for any reason other than fornication, which is in this case adultery. Go ahead.
Again, you have heard that it has been said by them of old time, you shall not forswear yourself, but shall perform unto Yahweh your oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is Yahweh's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these comes of evil.
So let your word be your word. Your word is your bond. That is your spiritual credit. Go ahead.
You have heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that you resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite you on your right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue you at the law, and take away your coat, let him have your cloak also. And whosoever shall compel you to go a mile, go with him too. Give to him that asks you, and from him that would borrow of you, turn you not away. You have heard that it has been said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you.
So he's asking us to go above and beyond. And keep in mind, this is Matthew chapter 5. This is the beginning when he's preparing the disciples to go out amongst the people. So they couldn't be out there trying to fight with people while they're trying to bring a different concept that could get them killed. They had to take and accept this higher calling. So there's a time and place for this. So, at the end of this, Yahshua is saying, listen, you need to go get you a sword. He's telling brothers, listen, I'm not with you anymore. I'm about to leave. I'm about to go up and I'm about to put this spirit on you, which is going to make them want to kill you even more. So you got to take these things in concept. But the general precept that he's trying to give here is he's preparing us for this higher calling to go above and beyond the normal thing. The normal thing is somebody want to do something evil to you, you just don't do nothing back to them. That's the normal. He's saying going above and beyond. Not only don't do something negative to them, bless them. Show them this is what righteousness looks like, so that when you give somebody a direct contrast of what they are, it allows them to see their error even better. But if they're yelling at you and you yelling at them, how are they going to know the difference of who's right and who's wrong? Every man feels he's right in his own eyes. But when somebody's railing on you and you just calm and you just like, what is the purpose? Why are you doing this? It allows the person to see the contrast of you versus them. And now they can kind of sit for a second and say, listen, I'm in the screaming match by myself. Go ahead.
Verse 43. You have heard that it has been said, or further down than that, 45, that you may be children of your Father which is in heaven, for he makes the sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and unjust. For if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans do the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even publicans do so? Be you therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
All right, so it says, I missed the precept there. Verse 45, he makes the sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. So we don't want to get in the habit too of when we see servants going through things that we say, whoa, they must have did something really bad, because look at what they going through, because it rains on the just and the unjust. We don't want to be Job's friends. We don't want to be them type of Hebrews, especially when you see a brother's doing what he needs to do. And we had a question from a brother that asked, what if you have a wife with a Jezebel spirit and doing everything but fornication? Now we got to understand, when it's talking about fornication and adultery, there's a physical aspect of that and there's a spiritual aspect of that. So when he's talking about this fornication, he's talking about also the worship of other gods. And when you're with a Jezebel spirit, you're dealing with the worship of another god. But we have to be very careful with that, because we have to understand, just like we said, the mercy that you dish out is the mercy you're going to receive. So before you get to a point of putting away a wife, which Yahshua said he never intended that to happen at all with the family, you better make sure that you did everything in your power to reconcile, and that you waited and that you tarried and you prayed and you did what you could. Because if you put that woman away unjustified, the Most High gonna deal with you because of that, because he put you to be a covering. So you want to make sure you do everything in your power, all the way up to the point where, whereas she gonna have to make those kind of decisions, that she's gonna walk away from that because you're gonna keep the law, because you want to maintain yourself blameless. Now, of course, everybody's situation is different. Just like in any matter, you have to get all the details before you make any kind of judgment. But just know that when it's talking about adultery and fornication, it's not only talking about direct sexual act of somebody. Also, the worship of another god is also an issue that can cause a household to be split, because you can't yoke yourself to somebody that is worshiping an idol.
And also, Aki, sometimes that idol is self.
Yeah.
You know, the scripture says the women of Zion are haughty. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that also means the God that they have in their heart is the God of themselves.
Right.
So if you're against that God that they have in their own heart, which is self, and you correct or rebuke or say, no, the thing you're doing is not good, they're going to lash out, because you pretty much are smashing that idol that they
Jezebel
have
spirit
up in their heart. So sometimes there's really nothing that can be done. How can two walk unless they be agreed? But all the man can necessarily do, and this is women as well. If you genuinely petitioning to your spouse about changes can't do anything, it'll be just like Nabal and Abigail, because it said that he was such a son of Belial that no man can talk to him. No one can reason with him. So that as a man, you have to set that precedence in your home that, look, we have to be able to easily entreat one another. You can't have that hardness all day, or else it's not human. That's animalistic. That's barbaric.
Right.
Bring yourself back to a human level where Yah wants us to use our intellect, learn how to reason with one another. That's sensible. So if you can bring things down and take time as the husband to set that precedence of, let's cause a spirit of entreatability to be in the home, where I can communicate and be heard, you can communicate and be heard, and then give things a season where you're doing that to the best of your ability. You're employing your spouse to do the same. You're asking her to do the same for you, because you realize you may have that same weakness as well, and see where it goes for that season. And if not, I mean, the law of divorce is in the scriptures for a reason, right? But of course, it's only used for fornication,
extreme circumstances, exactly. And you also have to look at what Saul spoke on that. You know, you have somebody that wants to do adultery and fornication through another god, and wants to worship Allah of the Muslims, or whatever the case may be. You know, marriage has seasons. So maybe in this season she a Catholic, or she a Muslim, or whatever. And if she wants to dwell with you, and she's fine keeping the order, saying, listen, you do whatever you want, but in this house we ain't having that. You want to go out there and do that, I'm not gonna put you out my house. Matter of fact, we are told not to put them out the house as the counsel that we received. But what will happen is, while you are upholding those laws, that spirit is going to be light and dark cannot dwell. She is going to want to flee, or he is going to want to flee. Whoever is doing that idol worship is going to want to flee, because every time they see you and you're walking in righteousness, it's a direct reflection of what they are not doing. And they don't want to see that. That's like if you wearing a dirty, filthy outfit, and every time you come around, this person is clean as ever. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to either A, clean yourself up, or you're like, yo, I'm stopped coming around here because this dude is making me look dirty. I feel convicted. So Saul is basically saying, don't put that woman away. Because if she want to leave, let her go. Let her go, because who are you to think that you are going to save somebody? You can't save yourself, much less anybody else. So in that counsel, I would highly suggest that you don't put that woman out, because you don't know what's going to change. We never knew we were going to change. The world never picked us and said, that guy right there is going to change and stop adultery and stop, idol worship. Nobody said that about us. The Most High chose when that time was. So again, like I always tell people, err on the side of mercy, especially when it comes to covenants. Covenants are very serious to the Most High. So I implore brothers to do everything in your power to try to keep that peace in the house. But again, if your eye offends you, pluck it out. It's better that you go in there with one eye than to go into the lake of fire with both eyes yoked to your spouse.
There's also the issue of accountability also, because scripture does say that a wicked wife is given out to
a wicked husband.
So there's I think as the head, the male has make sure that he's doing everything that he can to assess his own behavior. Because the wife can be what scripture also says, that let the husband be won over by the wife's behavior, vice versa. So he has to be living an exemplary life that's going to cause her to want to not shun him because his garment is clean and hers is dirty, but instead want to be somebody that has a clean garment on. So if you're dealing with a wife, to me, that has a Jezebel spirit, first you have to assess your own behavior, and then you have to lead by example. So then she's not going to want to leave. She's going to want to make sure that she's reflecting her husband.
Exactly. And that's the first thing you have to examine in any situation, because we are the heads. And just like in dealing with the saying that the daughters of Yehuda are haughty, well, where did they get this haughtiness from? It all goes upstream. It goes to those husbands and those fathers. So those things have to be checked. But at the end of the day, what Yah put together, no man can put asunder. So if Yah put those two unions together, ain't nothing going to break that apart. But we see constant situations in here in this book where you have a man that's one way and a woman that's another way, or a woman that's one way and a man that's another way. And you will have situations where, you're dealing with bloodlines, situations can happen. But in any situation, before we start pointing fingers at anybody else, regardless of whether it's a relationship or a problem with another individual, you got to check yourselves. And what the Most High will also do with the woman, because the woman has helped me, he will put her in your life to be a direct reflection of the things that you need to work on in your own life. Because the eyes work one way, they go outward. They don't come inward. So he'll put that woman or put that man in front of you to do the things that you're doing to the Most High, so that you can see it. So you can see it live and you can say, oh my goodness, this is what I'm doing. And then you can make the changes that you need to make in your life. But the main precept is err on the side of mercy. And just remember, when you cut somebody off, that may be their salvation. And you don't want the Most High and this is not just even in a marriage, in an assembly, in a friendship, whatever. Knowing that you're supposed to be the one that's the ambassador to this word, it could be very well them from their salvation, and you don't want that blood in your hands. So you want to make sure you are blameless to the best of your ability.
Hallelujah. So we're still on Matthew chapter 5,
verse 47.
Verse 47. Oh yeah, we finished it.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's go to 1 Kings, Rishon Malakim, chapter 19.
Hey, I definitely feel like Matthew chapter 5 is like Yeshua's constitution. Like of course, Constitution is the law, but I think Matthew chapter 5 is like the Constitution that Yeshua's teaching. Right. That's like the backbone of everything he said.
It's the higher calling. He's letting you know point blank, this is what you want to be part of my body. This is what you're called to do. Because the head is going to do this. So if the head is taking the abuse, the body is going to feel that. The whole body is going to take that. So if we are the body, we're going to be part of that tribulation. And we have to prepare ourselves coming into this word. Everybody, we coming out of Christian church where we taught where everything going to be all great. Everything is all great. Like, they put the horns on the guy. You're going to push through Babylon and da-da-da-da-da. And we're taught this rah, 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 wave the flag. Yeah, exactly. The secret and all this stuff. And we're taught all these great things, but we're not told, listen, you coming in this word, prepare to suffer. Prepare for tribulation. And what I'm seeing is the newer people coming into this word are getting hit even harder than the generation before. Because I came in this word and I thought like, man, really? It took 1-2 years and I'm like the most major things that have ever happened to me happened. And then I'm seeing the younger generation that came under me. One dude, he just came out the water. Shh, whoom, whoom, javelins flying at. It's just like, whoa. Then you got other people, they coming in the word, they dealing with deaths, and it's just like, it's the tribulation is picking up because we are having less and less time. That lets you know we're running out of time. Whereas he would say, listen, you got time to stretch out these learning, but now let me start whooping them on now. So they need to understand out the gate what they're going to be dealing with, the higher calling that you're called to. Now, does that mean that you want to be, suffering all the time and that. Nah, nobody wants to do that. But you have to understand all things are for the glory of the Most High. And if you're his servant, you're going to have to go through things just like a soldier. If you're a soldier and he says it's time to go to war, that's tribulation for you, but that's your job. You in this army. You chose to be in that army. Rashawn Malakim, 1 Kings chapter 19. And Shabbat Shalom, Brother Larry Evans, good to see you. Linda Moody, Shabbat Shalom. And a few other people came on, but the comments, the comments, I couldn't keep up with the comments. Sorry if I missed some of the people coming on. Shabbat Shalom to all the viewers that are viewing and commenting.
Psalm Malachi, chapter 19, 1 Kings 19 and verse 1. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, So let the mighty ones do to me, and more also, if I make not your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. Actually, he was there. Mm-hmm. And which just gives more evidence that Judah is not where they think.
It can't be.
Because Beersheba was definitely south around where we were at.
Right.
But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now, O Yahweh, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers.
So, the tribulation comes, and, we all get like this. And this is, it kind of makes you feel better looking at, even this great prophet Elijah, somebody who was taken up into the first or second heaven. You see that even he can get overwhelmed and be like, I just want to just take, what good is my life? Just take me away. This woman trying to kill me, and all I'm trying to do is righteousness, and see how Yahweh deal with him.
And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, an angel touched him and said unto him, Arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baking on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. And the angel of Yahweh came again the second time, and touched him, and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you.
So in other words, you ready to give up because you just so beat up, you just so tired, you going through so much affliction and tribulation, and Yahweh like, look here, man, you still got a job to do. I still got work for you. When it's time for you to go, I'll take you. So you continue doing your work. Because whereas you looking at a matter and you looking at a situation and saying, I can't take this, this is just too much for me, Yahweh gonna take over that. You're gonna do things that you never thought you could do just for the sake of he getting his glory. So when you look at a matter, don't look at a matter and say, this is too overwhelming, this is too much for me. Have faith. Because it's not you that do these things. It's the Mashiach. It's the word. It's Israel, the spirit of Israel in you that is doing these things. But if you try to judge what you can do based on your carnal ability, then what kind of glory are you giving the Most High? Then you doing the work. It's not him that's doing the work. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Verse 8. And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of Elohim. And he came there unto a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of Yahweh came to him and said unto him, What doest you here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahweh Elohim of hosts, for the children of Yasharal have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and slain your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And he said, Go forth and stand upon the mount before Yahweh. And behold, Yahweh passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains and brake in pieces the rocks before Yahweh. But Yahweh was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But Yahweh was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice.
So Yahweh was not in the destruction that was happening around him. But Yahweh allowed that destruction and all this chaos to happen around him in the moment that he's already weak. But the constant is Yahweh protected him from all these things. Yahweh kept him safe from all these things that should, are very dangerous things that are happening. Earthquakes and rocks and great mighty winds, all kind of things that can easily overtake a servant who's already in a weakened state. And through all this tribulation and all this anguish that's going around him, this is the moment where Yahweh is now going to send him a still small voice. So when we're going through all this tribulation and all these things, and we're, to the most part, trying to walk in righteousness and focusing on making sure we're doing righteousness, be ready to hear that still small voice, because that's when he's going to give you the instructions. That's when he's going to talk to you and tell you, listen, I'm strengthening you. I have you in this situation for a reason, for my glory, not for you, not for the situation that you think this is. This is for my glory. I have a job to do. This is already written. This is called scripture for a reason. This is a script. You just need to find who you are in the script and stick to it. And the script tell you you're supposed to be righteous, sanctified, set apart people that are supposed to dwell with me forever. So you have to find out how you get in there. And sometimes it's going to take this tribulation and all this stuff for him to give you a still small voice where you can have to be focusing enough on him through all this tribulation to hear that little still small directions of what you need to do.
Verse 13. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entering in of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him and said, What doest you here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahweh Elohim of hosts, because the children of Yasharal have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and slain your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And Yahweh said unto him, Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you come, anoint Hazazel to be king over Syria. And Jehu the son of Nimshi shall you anoint to be king over Yasharal. And Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel-Mohlah shall you anoint to be prophet in your room. And it shall come to pass that him that escapes the sword of Hazazel shall Jehu slay, and him that escapes from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Yasharal, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which has not kissed him.
All right. So one thing that they used to have, and I just learned this the other day, is a practice of the idol worshipers is they used to kiss their hand. They used to kiss their hand in honor of their pagan idols. And that also brings some more context in the Job chapter 30, I believe, when he said, if I even so looked up to heaven and kissed my hand, because this is something that the idol worshipers would do to honor the moon god, the sun god, or whatever little pagan gods that they have made up. Go ahead.
Verse 19. So he departed there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with the 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he with the 12th. And Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him.
All right, we can stop there at verse 19. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to Job chapter 1. Job chapter 1, which is like another 3 or 4 books down. Job chapter 1, and we're going to read chapter 1 and chapter 2. And this goes back again into what we have a tendency of when servants go through things, we want to place judgment on them because they're going through some kind of tribulation that, this is because they did this or this is because they did that. Well, we don't know what a matter is. Yeah, if they need to address something in their lives, yeah, they need to address that. Don't get me wrong. But we don't know why the tribulation and anguish happens to different individuals. All we know is that this is for the perfecting of the saints and it's for the glory of the Most High. So you make sure that whatever you go through allows for the Most High to receive glory in a matter. And the way that he receives glory in a matter is that no matter what you're subjected to or go through, you are going to repent and you are going to produce fruit and give all the glory to the Most High when he delivers you out of that situation.
Job chapter 1 and verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared Elohim and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-donkeys, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all men of the East.
Now, the Septuagint says that this brother was an Edomite, which is very interesting. We know his friends is Edomites, but when you read the end of, chapter 46 or 47 or something like that, or 42, if you go to chapter 42 in the Septuagint or in the Apocrypha and the older Bibles, it's going to show you the end of Job, and it's going to show that Job was actually an Edomite. Go ahead.
Which is nothing surprising. That's still a son of Abraham.
Right.
You know, there's still a group of people who would keep Abrahamic traditions.
Right. But that destroys that whole Esau's the white man, because Job telling you his color, his skin.
Mm-hmm. Skin is black upon me.
Right. So, it's killing a lot of doctrines there. It's killing the doctrine that, Esau's this white man, and it's killing the doctrine that, because you're of the seed of Esau, there can't be any righteousness in you, because at the end of the day, your flesh may be one thing, but it's the spirit that they put in you, just like Israel. Just because your flesh is from a holy bloodline don't mean you walking in holiness. You had look at Samuel's sons. You know what I'm saying? Look at Eli's sons. Look at different brothers and sisters. Look at Jacob's twin brother. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings, according to the number of them all. For Job said, It may be that my sons have sinned, and cursed Elohim in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Now there was a day when the sons of Elohim came to present themselves before Yahweh, and Satan came also among them. And Yahweh said unto Satan, Whence comest you? Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahweh said unto Satan, Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that fears Elohim and eschews evil? Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, Does Job fear Elohim for naught? Have not you made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land.
And that's what you receive when you eschew evil and you walk in righteousness. You're going to receive that hedge of protection. The adversary can't touch you. Go ahead.
But put forth your hand now, and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And Yahweh said unto Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only upon himself put not forth your hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh.
So, the people that critique the Bible like to say, well, how can God make a gamble on some man's life? Nah, man, we are servants. If he want to pick a perfect servant and put him through tribulation, like he did Yahshua, so that other people can learn from that, who are we to judge that? And he's not going to pick you to do that because you're a transgressor. But he picked a perfect man who's upright and eschewed evil, knowing how this brother was going to react. So thousands of years, righteous servants that are going through things can see this and say, listen, I am not as righteous as Job because I've transgressed. I've done certain things. But even this man in his tribulation never blamed Yahweh, never turned around and hated the Most High for allowing him to go through something. He was enough wisdom to wait to the latter end to know that Yah was going to restore him in the latter end. But if you know you're not walking in righteousness, then you know you don't really deserve a righteous reward. So you mad. You mad that you going through things because you just want to receive that free reward that you were getting knowing that you was walking in wickedness.
Verse 13. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword. And only I am escaped alone to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of Elohim is fallen from heaven and has burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away, yea, and have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and only I am escaped alone to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell you.
So with all this tribulation coming on a brother who has obviously been blessed of the Most High, so he wasn't upset when he was blessed for doing righteousness' sake. Now he's in a situation where he's getting this tribulation and he's being proven at this point. And it's easy for somebody with any of these type of events. This is enough for people to say, I'm not dealing with the Most High no more. And this is what people do. They get in this situation, you know, and once they suffer loss for being in this word, they ready to give up on the Most High. I'm not dealing with Israel. I ain't dealing with these Israelites. I'm not dealing with this situation because of tribulation. But at the end of the day, we want all the blessings. We want to accept all the good things that come with being a servant. Then we got to take the suffering and the tribulation that comes along with the higher calling. Because at the end of the day, it ain't about us always getting something and enjoying something and being in a great time. It's about the job that we need to do so that we can receive the payment for doing the job. And that payment is eternal life in peace with the Father. Hallelujah. We got to keep that in perspective and stop selling ourselves short with the little minor things that are problems that men and women face generally in the earth. Those are temporary. The adversary wants you to forget about the end game so you can focus on this fruit that look real nice and appealing and lustful to the eye.
Verse 20. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh has taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged Elohim foolishly.
All right, so Job, despite all of this that's going on, he didn't lose his spirituality. And this brother was in severe pain. He lost his sons. This is his lineage going forth here. But he didn't charge Elohim because he knows the character, the Shem of the Most High. Yahweh not just going to come here and just destroy off everything I have for no reason, just for fun, just cuz. Nah, he's going to, there's a reason. So let me not charge. Yahweh gave this so Yahweh can take it away. So the one who makes these decisions is righteous. I ain't got to worry about him. The devil ain't in control here. He don't have higher authority than the Most High. So he's only allowed to do what Yahweh allows him to do. So this is happening for a reason. So something so deep and obviously so spiritual, let me tarry for some understanding. We're going to skip Job chapter 2. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 12. And Job chapter 2 is when he starts to strike Job with things that are physically affecting himself. Hebrews chapter 12. And we had a question. Brother asked, well, what if I just found out and gone through figuring out who I was? Do I read the scriptures and see what I already am on the scriptures? Yes, you definitely read the scriptures. You can, to see who you are. You know, if you are of the transcontinental slave trade, descendants of slaves, or the sub-Saharan slave trade, then you are likely of the 12 tribes of Israel. But we don't know for sure. Can't nobody pinpoint that for sure. But what you can do, you can also look at the characteristics of the children of Yasharal. What would happen to them? What happened to their forefathers? The fact that we have no knowledge of solid knowledge of who we are, of where our family came from, that our names, our language. These are all the things that are prophesied to happen to the children of Yasharal. And if everybody that come from where you come from and are like you, or all have the same scenario, all can't answer these questions, then you are likely of the 12 tribes of Yasharal. And at the end of the day, whether you are of Israel or not, you're going to have to keep these commandments, and you're going to have to walk in righteousness if you want to receive that spirit of Yasharal. Hebrews chapter 12. And we're going to start this at verse 1.
Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Yeshua, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the stake, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest you be wearied and faint in your minds.
So anytime you start feeling too sorry for yourself because you going through so much tribulation and you so righteous, look at Yeshua. Look at Yeshua and say, look, this man didn't even transgress, and yet he had to face the contradiction of a sinner. The sinner is the one that's supposed to see death, not the one who was perfect. So if he can suffer for righteousness' sake, we can suffer for the little things that we go through in our life, knowing that in our previous lives and in our current lives, we have transgressed against Yahweh. Go ahead.
Verse 3. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest you be wearied and faint in your minds. You have not resisted unto blood, striving against sin.
But we feel like we got it so rough. How many of us are bleeding for righteousness? You know, at least even the woman, she bleed, 7 days out the month. When the last time we bled for righteousness? Now, we done bled for wickedness, going out there in the streets, doing foolishness, getting in fights and getting in problems with police and all that stuff. Well, when have we bled for righteousness? We have to consider that when we feel like our plight is so horrible. We just being so afflicted. Go ahead.
And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks unto you as unto children. My son, despise not you the chastening, nor faint when you are rebuked of him.
The chastening of the Adonai. Go ahead.
For whom Yahweh loves, he chastens, and scourges every son whom he receives. If you endure chastening, Elohim deals with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chastens not?
So if you endure, which means you keep these commandments through this chastening, then he deals with you as with sons. Because if you don't keep the commandments through this chastening, then you're saying Yahweh is not your father and you are a bastard. Then you just reaping what you sow. Then there's no growth for you. There's no increase for you. So you're gonna get chastened if he's a father to you. Then you might as well receive the chastening, just like when your father punished you when you was a kid and he sent you and ground you in your room. If you put on good behavior, even jails understand that concept, release for good behavior. If you accept the fact, look, I did wrong, let me just deal with this time, your sentence might be lightened for that. We can get that concept in this carnal jail. Why we can't get that concept with the Father? This is why you look at our nation and everybody in our nation is being chastened. And everybody in our nation ain't Job. I don't care. You can find the brother you think is the most righteous brother out there, and this brother is transgressing, or this sister is transgressing. But at the end of the day, if they're accepting the chastening that's in their lives, and they're growing from that, and digging deeper, and willing to accept that maybe I'm not in transgression right now, then, well, regardless of that, it rains on the just and the unjust. Let me suffer for righteousness' sake. Then there's growth in that, and Yahweh is dealing with you as with a son.
Verse 7. If you endure chastening, Elohim deals with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chastens not? But if you be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are you illegitimate son, and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now, no chastening for the present seems to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby.
Because again, blessed are those that mourn and those that grieve. When you are being grieved through the tribulation, and Yahweh relieves you of that tribulation, when you come out on the other end, you giving glory to the Most High. I've made it. There's a lesson to be learned. If you are accepting this chastening, if you are being like a child go in the room and break something, and you yell at the child, why you did that? Go stand in that corner. That child go in the corner screaming and yelling. They not learning nothing. But that's a child. Brother West, you grab the incense. That's a child. We grown adults. We should know, we had enough understanding that if you had a good parent, they not just grabbing you, come here, and let me just beat the crap out of you for no reason. They doing that for you. Now, we grew up and we were able to look at our parents and say, you know what, Pops, I'm glad. I was talking to a brother just yesterday, Brother Isaiah. You know, we were talking about a situation, and I told him about a situation I had when I was 15. You know, when we 15, you know, you in the weight room, you know, I was playing football, you know, had some creatine in my body, was feeling myself. And, you know, I tried to buck on my dad. I was like, Dad, you don't want none of this. You know what I'm saying? I tried to get in his face. You know, we were arguing about something, and I got in his face like I was finna do something. Man, I think my right side of my face is probably still lighter than the other side. He slapped the color out of me, bro. And I just stood there like a pit bull on a chain, you know, where you just can't move. And I was, my fist balled up there like this, just, I want to hurt you so bad. Like, don't you know I beat you up like that little kid I beat up the other day? You know, but it's a grown man I'm dealing with. And when I grew up, I said, you know what, Dad, thank you. Thank you for putting me in my place and showing me a child's place to an adult's place, to respect authority figures, to understand the order that the Most High put forth. At least I'd be out in the streets and having the police beat the crap out of me or shoot me down in front of my children because I don't know how to conduct myself in an orderly fashion. So we're able to thank parents for that. Why we can't thank the Most High like Job did, you know, to Yah be the glory. Blessed be Yahweh.
Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 12. Wherefore lift up the hands which hang down and feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. Follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see Yahweh.
So follow peace with all men. That means when you in the streets preaching this word, yes, you reaching out to your brothers and sisters, these Israelites, but that don't mean attack white people or attack whoever you think is Esau. You think white people, that don't mean attack anybody. Follow peace with all men. It don't say kiss nobody behind, but follow peace with all men.
You know, Aki, that bit of time, that week or so I was in Israel, you know, I saw how what necessity we have in the world.
Right.
You know, that the other nations are supposed to look at us and learn
Right.
The other nations are supposed to look at us and receive something that's lacking from their own culture. You know, so the other nations should be able to look at us and be like, man, those are a loving people, or
Right.
man, those are a wise people. Man, I've seen these people forgive. You know, like they have to be able to look to us and find something that they can say, I need this. This
Right.
this is the necessity. So while I was there, you know, I see that the Israeli population, and when I say Israeli population, I'll say the nation that was established in 1948.
Right.
The Israeli population may be lacking a lot of cultural necessities.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that it seems like a bleached society. Just like on rice, you take the nutrients out, and all you have is the unhealthy starches.
Right.
You know, I feel like that's what's happened, and I feel like our nation revitalizes what was taken away. It brings the flavor back, you know, it brings the culture back. And I think that's how we need to look. Instead of, hey, Esau, that is old. Let all that go. What we need to do is have we need to have guidelines as to what do you believe as an Israelite, as an actual Hebrew, as an actual Shemite, as an actual son of Abraham. What do you believe? What are your ethics? What are your standards? Do you know what love is? Do you know what care is? Do you know what it means to be impartial, whether a person is a stranger or one of your own? Do you know what it means to manifest justice and to be fair to one another? You know, so we definitely have to be the example, not only, of course, first for our families, first for our spouses, then for the rest of our families, then for our congregations. And once we can do that for our nation, then we can do the same for the rest of the nations and be a light unto all the nations.
Right. But you got to start with ourselves and stop being double-minded. You know, make a decision. You know, there's a higher calling. You going to pick up the phone or you going to let it ring? You don't pick up that phone. That's the message that say, hey, listen, this is what time you need to go ahead and do this and do that so you can get in the kingdom. You know, you don't want to be them virgins that ran out of that oil because you ain't know that the master was coming. So let's stop right there. Let's move on. Let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. You know, the whole concept of free will is a mind screw almost, because you have free will, but at the end of the day you gonna end up exactly where Yah wants you to be. It's just the free will you have is how much behind whooping do you want to take before you get to where you're going. Because you can take no behind whooping and say that I ain't going to do nothing, and Yahweh like, you know, I'm not even going to chasten you no more. You're going to eventually just reap what you sow and then die. That's it. You got free will for that. Or you got free will that through much tribulation and suffering am I going to enter the kingdom of heaven. Accept it. It's going to be what it's going to be. Just be appreciative you're not in that time frame where they went through the ultimate suffering. You know, or the time of slavery, our ancestors, things of that nature. So we're not, you know, people had to go through so much just to give us the little shreds of good information that we did receive before receiving even more information. So we have to keep that in mind. And when you read the sacrifices that these people make, what makes us think we're going to waltz in there in a hoverboard all easy, like everything is going to be easy? It's not. You talk to every single servant, man. And with us and with the assembly, man, you know, we're on the phone all day long, just counseling people, listening to things that people are going through and talking to one another, sharing one another, you know, and it's two ways, because it's therapy for both of us, because we all going through stuff. Like you said, when you want somebody to understand what you're going through, we're all going through it. Just because you see people up here smiling and doing things don't mean that our walk is easy. It's a tough walk. And part of that walk is Yahweh making you prove to yourself that you are who you say you are, that you're not thinking of yourself better than what you are. Because we all like to think that we're great and we're these holy Kodashim people. But at the end of the day, we Kodesh in training. And it's going to take tribulation and it's going to take consistency for us to get to where we need to be. 2 Timothy chapter 2. And let's start this at verse 1.
You, therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Mashiach Yahshua, and in the things that you have heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit you to faithful men who shall be able to teach others also.
So it says, my son, be strong in the grace that's in the Mashiach Yahshua. Elaborate that on a little bit for me, brother. What do you get from that?
Well, my non-Strong's understanding of what grace is that you've been given liberty, a pardon, mercy. You've been given room to exercise whatever gift you've been given. So the grace that you've been preserved by Yahshua, that justification that you received, use it.
Right.
You know, if we do, like, you know, Strong's, I know that word there is G5485. G5485. So let me go there as quickly as I can. 5485 is charis, almost like charisma. Graciousness of manner or act, abstract or concrete, literal, figurative or spiritual, especially the divine influence upon the heart. And its reflection in the life, including gratitude, acceptable, benefit, favor, gift, grace, joy, liberally play. So it seems more so rather than just mercy, but also what you've been gifted with that forgiveness. So use that grace, that gift to witness unto others.
Exactly. And be strong in that. Use that. You have that. If you have an opportunity where you got a week before your payment is due and you don't have any money, use that week. Be strong in that week. You hitting it hard. You trying to get everything you can get during that time because somebody bought time for you. So be strong in that. Utilize this period where you are not going to die for your sin right now to do the best you can, to do all the good that you can do, to work out all these inferior things in you that need to be removed from you. Utilize that. Go for the gold. Try to be perfect, knowing that you're not going to hit that level. Do your best, shoot out to do what nobody has done before. I'm going to rule my house completely on these commandments. I'm going to walk completely on these commandments. No matter what goes on to me, whatever suffering I got to go through, I'm going to keep my eye on this narrow path. And when I mess up, because I'm going to mess up, I got the grace of the Most High. So be strong in that. Know that. You're going to mess up. You may go hard in the wrong direction. Saul did that. Saul thought that he was going hard for the Torah. And when he realized, oh man, he went and got immersed in chains, and now he went hard for the Mashiach and responsible for like almost 3/4 of the New Testament.
Verse 3. You therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahshua Mashiach.
All right. Endure hardness. We are soldiers of the Mashiach, soldiers of Christ. So we're going to have to endure hardness. Go ahead.
No man that wars entangles himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who has chosen him to be a soldier.
And so that he might live too. This is when you out there and you a soldier and you in war, you can't be thinking, man, did I pay that Comcast bill? Oh man, you finna get shot. Or you finna let down your brother who you supposed to be watching his back. So if you are a soldier, you have been called to the higher calling of this word. You can't be entangled in these worldly things. You can't be so concerned about this worldly stuff. Now, that doesn't mean you be an idiot. You can't be at war and just don't write to your wife and don't care about your family. Don't see if they got money to pay bills. Nah, he don't mean do that. Don't entangle yourself. Don't be so yoked to the worldly way of things that you forget about your responsibilities as a soldier of the Mashiach. Don't let life sneak up on you so hard that you don't have time for the Shabbat, that you don't have time to study, you don't have time to help your brothers and sisters that have need. You don't have time to think and reflect on the changes that you need to make in your life because you're so busy getting money. This is what he's talking about.
You know, there was a motto I came up with about a couple years ago about work and life that we live in. You know, some people they go to work and they get very tangled with like what's happening at a workplace. But I will always say to them, look, work. Even though we're full time 40 hours, I'll say work part time, live full time.
Right.
So that work and what you're doing, let it occupy, you know, its rightful place in your life. But you have all of this other time to do whatever you need to do, you know, improve, try your best. They'll care to know about the lifestyle that you're living and have more respect for it, and may want to even learn more or may even embrace it for themselves. So instead of just focusing wholly on your money in your account, let that keep its rightful place. Yes, you need money, you need food. Y'all knows this. That's part of the contract y'all has with you. I'm gonna cover your needs. I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna make sure your stomach is full at the right periods of time in life. But the other portion is what you dedicate to Yah, loving your brother, knowing your Shabbats and your appointed seasons.
Right. And this goes hand in hand with Yahshua's statement. You know, he that tries to save his life is going to lose it. And he who gives his life away freely for Yahshua's sake is going to find it. So give that away. You know, I got to deal, you know, we got to deal, you know, man don't work, he don't eat. So you got to work, do what you got to do. But what are you living for? Are you living to live here on this planet and die in you know, a few years like the pass of the wind? Or are you working to live forever with the Father and with all the patriarchs and with all the righteous people in this world in peace in your land? What are you living for? That's double-mindedness. You got to make up your mind. What are you living for? Are you living for this higher calling, or are you living just to be like the rest of the nations, just living until their time is up? And once you put that and you make that decision, then you have to stick with it and prioritize things of the heavens above these things on the earth. And Yahweh will not cause you to be stupid where you're not handling, paying your bills, doing these things, taking care of your family, you know, making sure your oil is changed in your car. He's not going to have you stupid. He's going to give you a smart mind to take care of the things you need to take care of. And he's going to cover all those things that you would feel that you got to spend all this time focusing on. And when you find people that are so engulfed in this world, what do you see? It's one thing after the other, one thing after the other. Keep it, because you show the Most High. That's where you want to focus. I'm going to give you that. Go ahead, focus on all these things. You're going to be so busy, you ain't never going to be able to make Shabbat. You ain't never going to be able to do works because you're going to be so busy. But when you say, you know what? I'm going to handle these things as they come, but I'm going to put all my focus over here. All of a sudden, he's taking care of these things for you. You done went 8 months without changing your oil for some reason, and you're like, oh man, I need to change my oil in your car. Okay, no problem. You know, so he can't teach you this without you doing it. You can't just tell somebody how to ride a bike. You got to ride the bike.
Seek ye first the kingdom of Yah, and everything shall be added.
All will be added unto you. Come.
Verse 5. If a man also strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned except he strive lawfully.
You got to do it right. You're not going to get into the kingdom unless you do it right.
The husbandman that labors must be first partaker of the fruits. Consider what I say, and the master give you understanding in all things. Remember that Yahshua Mashiach of the seed of Dawiz was raised from the dead according to my good news, wherein I suffered trouble as an evildoer, even unto bonds. But the word of Elohim is not bound.
Are we ready to go to prison to speak this word? And that is a very concerning revelation, because some of us are going to have to go into this jail to preach this word. So you have to be willing to be in bonds, and being in bonds doesn't always necessarily being in prison. You might be shut off from certain places. You can't go certain places because they're not accepting you. They don't want to deal with you because you don't want to deal with their pagan practices. And that's like being in bondage. But are you willing to do this for this righteousness? We can't forget the prize that is at hand. Go ahead.
This is verse 6.
No. We're at verse 10.
Verse 10. Therefore I endure all things for the elect's sakes, that they may also obtain the salvation which is in Mashiach Yahshua with eternal glory.
It ain't all about you. Endure these things so other people can be strengthened by them as well. You just don't have an idea where you have quiet people that are going through some very similar things to you, watching you go through the thing, and are there being strengthened and encouraged because they're looking at you. You have no idea how people perceive you. Some people could be perceiving you like you Superman. And you looking at like, ain't nobody looking at me like that. I know I'm just as weak as everybody. I struggle with the same things. But people are looking at you and they're seeing maybe something that you have that they're trying to receive spiritually, and they're being strengthened because of that. And here you are complaining that you're going through the situation, and the Most High is giving you fruits in heaven, stacking up treasures in heaven for you because you're going through something that's going to give glory to the Most High.
Verse 11, it is a faithful saying, for if we be dead with him, we shall also live with him. If we suffer, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he also will deny us. If we be not, yet he abides faithful, he cannot deny himself, if we believe not.
All right.
Of these things put them in remembrance, charging them before the master that they strive not about words to no profit, but to the subverting of the hearers.
So keep that in mind. Are we arguing just to argue? Just to prove, who to beat on your chest, who got the most Torah knowledge or what? Or are we trying to subvert the hearers? We're trying to allow the hearers to understand what it is that we are trying to do. Go ahead.
Study to show yourself approved unto Elohim, a workman that needs not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more wickedness, and their word will eat, as does a canker, of whom is Hymenaeus and Philetus, who concerning the truth have erred, saying that the resurrection is past already, and overthrow the faith of some.
All right, so study to show thyself approved unto Elohim, a workman that needs not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. You have to study to show your own self approved so that you can do your own work, so that you are not being misled, and so that you can also lead others. Because you're going to need to study to be able to rightly divide the word of truth, because there's always going to be somebody more knowledgeable than you in this word. That doesn't mean that they have wisdom and understanding. You can know how to physically throw a punch. That don't mean you know how to, your wisdom is being skillful in that. Are you skillful at doing that? You know what's written in here, but are you skillful at having understanding, which is to evade evil? Go ahead.
Verse 19, nevertheless, the foundation of Elohim stands sure, having this seal. The master knows them that are his. And let everyone that names the name of Mashiach depart from iniquity.
Everyone that names the name of the Mashiach must depart from iniquity. So if you are claiming that you are a follower of Christ, you have to depart from iniquity. Iniquity is lawlessness. So how can you call yourself a Christian and you don't deal with the commandments? You're not departing from iniquity. The New Testament is telling you that. Timothy is telling you that.
Aki, question, is the phone line open, like we're on speaker on the phone line as well?
No, I hung up, so we probably were off.
Yikes. All right. Sorry for anyone that was listening on the phone line.
We're back on live now. The phone.
All right. We are at 2 Timothy chapter 2,
verse 20.
and verse 20. But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor.
So there's a place for everything. So just because people are in assembly with you, don't mean that they're vessels of honor. There's going to be situations where you have people that are of wood and earth. And you're not going to know that until the fire comes. When the fire comes, then it's going to reveal what manner of a vessel that is.
If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. Flee the youthful lusts, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the master out of a pure heart.
And one youthful lust is that lust of the flesh, the desire to feed that lust of the flesh when somebody piss you off. That's one of the ones that as a child, when somebody got us angry, we yelled, we screamed, we fought, we went and we hurt the individual because we had to satisfy the lust of that flesh. That flesh was telling me I'm angry. Do something, retaliate. Don't let nobody think that they can do something to you that get you in this manner. That's youthful. We did that when we didn't understand the higher calling. Now that we understand that we have to be angry and sin not, we have to move away from those things. And that ain't gonna happen overnight, because mastering the flesh is the final stage. That might take your whole life. But before you can even try to master it, you got to acknowledge that that's not the right way to go and put forth the effort and pray for help to deliver that. Because what we think is that we in control, we can just change things. A lot of things ain't going to change about you until the Most High change that in you, until another person pray for you, which means we got to confess our faults to one another. We got to be humble enough to say, hey, guess what? You don't know me that well. You might think I'm a lot better than I am, but I'm really not. I'm suffering with this. I really need prayer because I'm praying and it ain't working. So can you pray for me? You know, I have to humble myself and ask somebody else to pray for me, you know, which makes me feel as if I'm saying somebody else is closer to the Most High than me. No, it's about humbling yourself, because that person praying for you might cause their prayers to be heard because they praying for you. This is why we pray for other individuals. The Most High may not be dealing with you because of the sin that you in, but the fact that you praying about one of his children, he hearing your prayer, and your little prayer about you slides in there too, about the thing that's causing you to transgress.
2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 22, flee also youthful lusts, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the master out of a pure heart. But foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes. And the servant of the master must not strive, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach, patient.
Gentle unto all men, apt to teach, patient. Go ahead.
In meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, if Elohim peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will.
And in verse 24, when it's talking about being gentle, not striving, and apt to teach, I remember when I first came in the word, you know, I had a lot of knowledge, you know, of what was written in here, and very little understanding. And a lot of people mistook the fact that, you know, I'm a very studious person. I can read and remember things and recall scripture like that. People would take that for understanding, and I mistook that for understanding. And I would get in these disputes with people online, and I'm like chopping them up with this word, and I'm just removing every leg you can stand on to go against what's written. And they would still be like, nah, I don't believe that. And I would get so pissed off. I would start attacking them and calling them names, and you idiot, and you just blind. Oh, you this, that, and the other, and egging on an attack so I could just abuse them with the word. That's not being apt to teach. You just got knowledge of something. Ain't nobody gonna learn with that if you're trying to teach somebody to be peaceful and then you throwing punches at them. And this is what I see constant with people when they first come into the word. When they first come into the word, they feel so boisterous, and they have all this power and knowledge, and they got this big sharp sword. And even though the knowledge is just a drop in the bucket, just like all of our knowledge is, but it's so much more than the average Christian or religious person that really don't read this book, that it gives you this exalted feeling. And then in that failure, you realize, I'm just a newbie. I'm new at this. I need to pull myself out all these debates and all this trying to correct people online and trying to post all this ultra I'm so righteous comments, Because you still got a lot of learning to do, and you got to be able to present the word peaceful, gentle, easily to entreat, so that the individual has the best opportunity to eat that food. It's just like when you cook food, you want it tender and soft so a person can easily chew the food and eat it. You don't give somebody a brick. You don't want them to eat that food, obviously.
Eat this truth brick.
You obviously you don't want this person to eat this food. But you're like, but Yahweh, I fed him. Yeah, he broke 2 incisors trying to bite into your bread, bro.
Will never be the same again. He still got a limp. Verse 26, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will.
All right. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 1. And this is another example of how we go through these afflictions and where our help is. We go through these afflictions and we think we're going to solve all these problems. But we are put in these problems so the Mashiach can help us out of these problems. And then when we're helped out of these problems, that allows us to help other people, because we can say, hey, trust me. Look, the Mashiach is going to help you. This word is going to help you. Trust it. It's going to get you out of this situation, because I went through the same thing and it helped me. It got me out of it. Don't worry. This ain't new territory. We've been here before. But how are you going to counsel to somebody like that? You're going to say, well, in 3,000 years ago, this brother went through that and it helped him. You'd be like, man, but that's 3,000 years ago. It's easier to tell somebody, man, a couple years ago, I went through the same thing. It's more relevant to you.
2 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 1. Saul, an apostle of Yahshua Mashiach by the will of Yahweh, and Timothy our brother, unto the assembly of Yahweh which is at Corinth, with all the saints which are in
2 Corinthians.
Yeah. Which all saints
I'm in the wrong chapter. My bad.
Which are in all Achaia. Grace be to you and peace from Yahweh our Father and from the Master Yahshua Mashiach. Blessed be Yahweh, even the Father of our Master Yahshua Mashiach, the Father of mercies, and the all of all comfort, who comforts us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble, by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of Elohim.
So understand that you going through things so that you can help somebody else who may not have the spiritual understanding or the teachings that you've had, to comfort them and draw them back to your source of strength, which was in this Mashiach, in this word. And you look at the word comfort, comforteth. The Greek word for comforteth is G3870, which is parakaleo. Parakaleo, spelled Parakeleo. And that is to call near. That is invite, invoke, beseech, call for, comfort, desire, entreat, pray. So we are comforted. We are called near to the Mashiach in the times of these tribulations. This is why we go through these things. It invites us. It beseeches us. It causes us to pray more. All these things happen. And this is part of being comforted by the Mashiach, comforted by this word. When things are all going great, the most prayer we might do is hallelujah, praise Yah. But when we going through it, we got calluses on our knees from praying so much, and those little marks on your face from crying so much. And this is the only time Yah hear from us. So if he want to hear from his child, oh, I got to beat him to hear from him, because there's a lot that I need for him to understand. And there's a lot that his Holy Spirit needs to intercede for him in prayer. But he won't come to me because he think everything is all good.
Verse 5. For as the sufferings of Mashiach abound in us, so also our consolation also abounds by Mashiach. And whether we be afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation, which is effectual in the enduring of the same sufferings which we also suffer. Or whether we be comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation. Our hope of you is steadfast, knowing that as you are partakers of the suffering, so shall you be also of the consolation. For we would not, brethren, have you ignorant of our trouble, which came to us in Asia, that we were pressed out of measure, above strength, insomuch that we despaired even of life. But we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in Yahweh, which raises the dead.
And that is the ultimate goal, for us to get to the point where we're not trusting ourselves with our own lives, where we say, you know what, I got to do this because this is going to save my life. But the thing that I got to do, by the way, means I got to walk away from Yahweh for a second. That's trusting yourself. No, trust in Yah. Listen, the Most High gave me the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit told me this is what I need to do, which is keep this commandment. And it doesn't appear like it's going to work out well for me to keep this commandment, but I trust Yah. I trust him, and I'm ready to suffer for righteousness. That's the problem. We're not ready to suffer for righteousness. We're ready to do righteousness as long as we get that righteous reward. But that righteous reward is going to involve us having to suffer for righteousness' sake. The pattern was already created in Yahshua. Go ahead.
Verse 10, who delivered us from so great a death, and does deliver, in whom we trust that he will yet deliver us. You also helping together by prayer for us, that for the gift bestowed upon us by the means of many persons, thanks may be given by many on our behalf. For our rejoicing is this, the testimony of our conscience, that in simplicity and righteous sincerity, not with fleshly wisdom, but by the grace of Elohim, we have had our conversation in the world, and more abundantly to you word. For we write none other things unto you than what we read or acknowledge, and I trust you shall acknowledge even to the end. As also you have acknowledged us in part, that we are your rejoicing, even as you also are ours in the days of the Master Yeshua.
All right, let's stop right there. Let's move on. Let's go to Acts chapter 14 for the conclusion. Acts chapter 14. So we have to remember that, you know, we go through these things so that the word could comfort us. The word comfort us by showing us, okay, listen, you need to do this action. This is the narrow path. This is the only thing that you can do. And because you know this is the lawful thing to do, I can now be comforted. Oh, okay, I know how to get close to the Most High. I know what to do now. I don't have to worry about what direction, because I know as long as I walk this narrow path, I'm going to be safe from all that destruction. Just like Elijah, when he was in that situation, he would see all these rocks and earthquake and winds and fires and all these things going around, but it's not going to touch you. And if it does touch you, it's going to give glory unto the Most High. But you got to be prepared and willing to suffer and give up your life if necessary. And you're not going to do that and be willing to give up your life if you ain't even willing to just suffer a little bit for righteousness' sake. The ultimate thing is to be willing to give up your life like the Mashiach. But praise Yah, the Messiah, praise Yah that he's not asking us all to die in the same manner that the Mashiach died to receive his life back. So we got to start with those little things that are going in our lives where it's not necessarily suffering. It's just I don't get to have as much pleasure. I would really like to go to this concert, but it's on Saturday. I would really like to do this, but, you know, I can't do that because it's unlawful. The food is unclean. Start with those different things, and you'll be comforted in doing the right thing so that when you deal with another brother that's going through that, you can comfort them and say, listen, I've been through that. That's nothing.
Hallelujah. I was listening very closely, brother. Oh, yeah, we had Acts 14.
Acts chapter 14.
That's usually when I lose my spot, when I'm like, yeah, let me hear this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm reading. Acts chapter 14 and verse 1. And it came to pass in Iconium that they went both together into the synagogue of the Yehudim, and so spake that a great multitude both of the Yehudim and also of the Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Yehudim stirred up the Gentiles and made their minds evil affected against the brethren. Long time therefore abode they, speaking boldly in Yahweh, which gave testimony unto the word of his grace, and granted signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the multitude of the city was divided, and part held with the Yehudim, and part with the apostles. And when there was an assault made both of the Gentiles and also of the Yehudim with their rulers, to use them despitefully, and to stone them. They were ware of it, and fled unto Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and unto the region that lies round about. And there they preached the good news, and there sat a certain man at Lystra, impotent in his feet, being a cripple from his mother's womb, who never had walked.
And you're seeing the word being spread out all the way into the outer parts where all the Gentiles and heathen are at. And that's because you got Israelites that are scattered there that still haven't heard the word. And the other nations are benefiting of that. But would they have went out there in all those places if everything was all good in the hood? So it's that tribulation that spread that word out, that allowed the word to reach all these different corners. So it's the things that happen in our lives that got us to get to the places that we needed to get to. I didn't come to Atlanta, necessarily in a good situation. I had to flee. So if I didn't have to flee, would I be here? I don't know. Would I have received the word here? I don't know.
Verse 9. The same heard Saul speak, who steadfastly beholding him and perceiving that he had faith to be healed, said with a loud voice, Stand upright on your feet. And he leaped and walked. And when the people saw what Saul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, The gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. And they called Barnabas Jupiter, Zeus, and Saul Mercurius. Was that supposed to be Hermes?
Yep.
Because he was the chief speaker. Then the priest of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people, which when the apostles Barnabas and Saul heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people, crying out and saying, Sirs, why do you these things? We also are men of like passions with you, and preach unto you that you should turn from these vanities unto the living Elohim, which made heaven and earth and the sea and all things that are therein.
So these brothers are doing righteousness, and they're being exalted to the point where they're trying to idolize them. And they refuse to take that idolization. And that's the difference between righteous servants and servants that are really just looking to have themselves exalted. Because you see that all the time, even in Star Wars, they lifting up the little Wookiee and this, that, or whatever the animal is, and having him like he's the king. And they'll be glad to take that worship. But look what these brothers are going through. They're going through the test of whether they're going to allow themselves to be worshiped. And they're going to go from that immediately into them trying to be killed for not being worshiped. Go ahead.
Verse 16. Who in times past suffered all nations to walk in their own ways. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good, and gave us rain from heaven in fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. And with these sayings, scarce restrained they the people, that they had not done sacrifice unto them. And there came there certain Yehudim from Antioch and Iconium, who persuaded the people, and having stoned Saul, drew him out of the city, supposing he had been dead.
So they stoned his brother. He go from 1 minute they're trying to worship him as a god. Then he's like, no, don't do that. Then his own people are stirring up the people to stone him.
Verse 20, howbeit, as the disciples stood round about him, he rose up and came into the city, and the next day he departed with Barnabas to Derbe. And when they had preached the good news to that city, and had taught many, they returned again to Lystra and to Iconium and Antioch, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue within the faith, and that we must through much tribulation enter into the kingdom of Yahweh.
And that we must through much tribulation enter into the kingdom of Elohim. These brothers was just stoned. Saul just was stoned here, went somewhere else, then came right back and started healing some more people, talking to some more people. That's a true believer right there. And this is the calling. He understands this concept that, look, I cause much tribulation in this world. So what do I expect? That it's just going to disappear because I decide to be righteous? No, I'm going to have to suffer for righteousness' sake. And he has people tailored for that. People that he allowed and gave much grace and much mercy to cause a bunch of damage. So those people should expect that you're going to go through much damage and tribulation while walking in righteousness to even your account. so that you can start getting balance of righteousness. So once you accept that concept, you were like, look, it's going to be what it's going to be. I can either, one way or another, it's going to even itself out. Whether I suffer for my wickedness that I did or suffer for righteousness' sake. And how do I want it to even out? Against me or for me? How do I want it to even out?
Verse
23.
And when they had ordained them elders in every assembly, and had prayed with fasting, they commended them to Yahweh, on whom they believed. And after they had passed through Pisidia, they came to Pamphylia. And when they had preached the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia, and there sailed to Antioch, from whence they had been recommended to the grace of Elohim for the work which they fulfilled. And when they were come and had gathered the assembly together, they rehearsed all that Elohim had done with them, and how he had opened the door of faith unto the Gentiles. And there they abode long time with the disciples.
All right, so that's all we're going to do today. You can, if you have time later, you can go look at Acts 27 and look at 28 and just look at Saul's plight. You know, with Saul, how he had to, you know, be shipwrecked in a shark-infested ocean, then came out among some barbarous people, some barbarians, and then, you know, got bit by a snake, went all through this stuff, and he's still like, praise Yah, keep it moving. And then if you go to Revelations chapter 7, it talks about those who came out of the great tribulation. And it's interesting to take a look at that, because it's talking about all those of all the nations of the earth. So it's talking about all the nations of the earth. So it's not just Israel that got to go through this great tribulation. All the nations of the earth have to go through this tribulation. And if you can come through that great tribulation, exercised by that, then you can receive that white robe that these brothers was wearing. So that's all we're going to do today. Any last questions or comments? Shabbat Shalom, Sharon Pinky. Good to see you, sis. All right, let's go ahead and close in prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings. And all sisters pray with their heads covered. And we face the east towards Jerusalem. All right, Brother West, can you go ahead and close us out in prayer, please?
Abba Father, covenant Elohim of Abraham, Yishak, and Jacob. Thank you for the class today, and thank you for sharing some knowledge, and thank you for your grace and bestowing your grace and mercy to us, Father Yahweh, so we could mikra together today, Father Yahweh, and hear your word today, Father Yahweh. I pray that this discourse today has been useful, and not just for our assembly here, but for everyone who's heard it. And I pray that it's touched someone out there today, Father Yahweh, as it has touched me, Father Yahweh. And I just pray, Father Yahweh, that your word will continue to shape our hearts, Father Yahweh, and move us over to your righteousness, Father Yahweh. As far as just thank you for allowing us to gather today, Father Yahweh, and in Yahshua HaMashiach's holy mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. Good job, brother.